All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are back for day number 14 of Donald Trump's hush money trial, where Stormy Daniels is still on the stand and is continuing to be cross-examined by Donald Trump's attorney, Susan Necheles. And we get to hear it all thanks to our man on the inside, Inner City Press, who is reporting from inside the courtroom and giving us a look at everything that is going on, what the judge is saying, what the prosecution is saying, and of course, what Trump's defense is saying. But what you will notice while we read through today's trial is that Judge Merchan is continuing to favor the prosecution. Remember, on Tuesday, Judge Merchan allowed the trial to go completely off the rails by allowing the prosecution to ask Stormy about irrelevant details of her alleged sexual encounter with Donald Trump, even though they are unable to articulate how this has any relevance to a falsified business record that this trial is supposed to be about. But essentially, they know they have a weak case, so their plan B is to attempt to prejudice the jury against Trump for something completely unrelated. Also, you will notice throughout the trial today that while Judge Merchan has given the prosecution free rein with Stormy Daniels, he prevents the defense, Trump's attorneys, from admitting key evidence that severely throws into question Stormy Daniels' story. And this further supports Donald Trump's claim that this is a totally conflicted judge. But before we get into this courtroom to observe this madness, before walking into court this morning, Donald Trump has announced in a press conference that he has filed a motion with the appellate courts to release his unconstitutional gag order.
I just want to let you know that we've just filed a major motion in the appellate division concerning the absolutely unconstitutional gag order, where I'm essentially not allowed to talk to you about anything meaningful that's going on in the case, and many good things are going on with the case. It shouldn't have been filed. They had this morning the top legal scholars in the country. This is a Frankenstein case. They took a dead misdemeanor, they attached it to a dead alleged federal felony and zapped it back into life. So many of us are just amazed to watch this actually walk into court, because it's not a recognizable crime that any of us have seen. It's Jonathan Turley.
When he says that this is a Frankenstein case, he is absolutely correct. DA Alvin Bragg and his office have charged Donald Trump with a crime falsifying business records, which is a misdemeanor in the state of New York that carries with it a 2-year statute of limitations. So why are they able to bring it 8 years later? Well, because they have upgraded it to a felony because they say that it was in furtherance of another crime. Now, what is his second crime? They haven't been able to say yet, other than saying that he was trying to influence the 2016 election by suppressing negative information like this story from Stormy Daniels and paying hush money to do so, which is not a crime. This is just basic PR for a political campaign. But let's enter into the courtroom where we have Donald Trump, who is wearing a blue suit and a blue tie. He comes in and he's chatting with his attorney, Todd Blanche, who is to his left, and his other attorney is Susan Necheles, who is doing the cross-examination of Stormy, who is to his right. And she is in the lead counsel's chair today. And Trump turns and talks to her, gesturing with his hand, waiting for Justice Merchan to arrive. All rise. And the clerk says, this is the people of the state of New York versus Donald J. Trump. And Merchan, he enters the courtroom and he says, all right, good morning. Prosecutor says, there is a defendant exhibit J26. It's an arrest record of Miss Daniels, and we move to preclude it. Merchan says, well, no conviction. And Trump's lawyer, Necheles, says, I plan to ask her about what her ex-husband accused her of. Merchan interrupts and he says, no, it's not coming in. Where do you stand on limiting instructions? Necheles says, can we wait to the end of testimony? Merchan says, yes, get the witness, please. And Stormy Daniels takes the stand. Woo! What is that smell? Oh, that is Stormy Daniels. Wow. But Judge Merchan says, all right, get the jury, please. And the clerk says, all rise, jury entering. And now we have Susan Necheles continuing the cross-examination of Stormy Daniels. And she says, all right, Ms. Daniels, you recall that President Trump was elected in November of 2016, correct? Stormy says that's correct. And you recall that you did an interview and said the claims you had sex with President Trump was bullshit. Objection! Sustained, says Merchan. But do you remember? I said sustained, says Merchan. He is not having it today. He's like, listen, defense, you don't get to ask Stormy questions that might throw her credibility in jeopardy. But Necheles says, in 2016, then you wanted to sell your story, and the Merchan says, all right, please approach. And they have a whispered sidebar. Blanche, he remains at the defense table with Trump, who is also whispering. Merchan reiterates, he says, the objection is sustained. When Necheles continues, she says, you wanted to sell your story to President Trump, right? Daniel says, no, I wanted to sell my story to the media, to get my story out. Necheles says, well, you made the decision for your lawyers to sell it. It's your choice, correct? Daniel says, I wanted to do a press conference, but you didn't. You spoke to Slate's Weisberg about your supposed affair with President Trump and that you were negotiating with Cohen. Is that right? And Daniel says, well, he was my backup. Okay, look at this exhibit. And this exhibit is not yet in evidence. But Necheles continues, you told Weisberg that as an alternative to being paid for your silence, you wanted to be paid for your story, right? Daniel says, I don't remember saying that. But you told Weisberg that. Stormy says, the better alternative was to get my story protected by a paper trail without putting my family at risk. But you told Weisberg that your motive was President Trump having come out against gay marriage and abortion. Daniel says, false. Necheles says, all right, well, let's look at this. Put up the transcript, which is already in evidence. Then we have the voice of Keith Davidson, which is heard before in this trial, and he is talking. I guess it's some sort of recording, and prosecutor says, objection! And Merchan says, sustained, please approach. And they have a sidebar. And after the sidebar, Necheles plays a different clip, which is in evidence. And she says, let me show you the contract. You know it's a legal agreement, right? Stormy says, I'm not an attorney, but yes, I know. And Necheles says, and it says that you had come into confidential information. Stormy says, I signed this based on what my attorney said I should. But you signed it. You released claims, correct? Yes. And Michael Cohen negotiated it, right? That's what I was led to believe. And here is the Wall Street Journal article. You knew it was coming out, right? Daniel says, Keith Davidson told me something was coming out. And you put up a statement denying you had sex with President Trump, right? And then Necheles reads the statement. And Stormy says, I didn't write it. I was told I had to sign it. But you denied the rumor, says Necheles. Daniel says, because it wasn't a rumor, it was true. Necheles says, you signed this too on January the 30th of 2018, correct? Stormy says, yes. And Michael Cohen was pushing you to sign this. Stormy says, well, it was through Keith Davidson. I did not speak with Michael Cohen directly. Well, President Trump was denying the affair in 2018, and he was not running for office then, correct? President Trump was trying to protect his brand, right? Stormy says, I don't know what he was trying to protect. Well, then you said you had sex with him to make money. Daniel says, I did some media for free. I did it for Anderson Cooper. But you said that you sold a book with your story for $800,000. Is that right? Stormy says, yeah, but I also didn't receive the $800,000. Necheles says, but so far it came to $930,000 in total. Is that right? Daniel says, minus what was stolen from me. And Necheles continues, and she says, after the book, you went on a strip club tour called, quote, Make America Horny. Stormy says, I did not name the tour. I fought it tooth and nail. Well, but you advertised your tour with a photo from the golf tournament. Is that right? Daniel says, that was not me. But didn't you say that the white men were gone? Now your fan base were gay couples and the resistance. Stormy says, it did change, but I was not selling myself. Necheles says, well, you were selling a story of supposedly having sex with Donald Trump, right? You made $200,000 for appearing on The Surreal Life, right? Yes. And a documentary on TV, you were paid for the rights to your book. Is that right? Daniel says, well, they didn't have to. And what about this, says Necheles. You had sex with a cameraman. And Stormy says, I started dating him and he became my husband. But you were married at the time, is that right? Daniel says, I was separated. And where did you deposit the money? Stormy says, I put it in my business account. It covers my security. And at the viewing parties, you are treated like a hero. They say that you are saving America. And Stormy says, that's in strip clubs. The viewing parties are polarizing. And you said you'll be instrumental in putting President Trump in jail. Stormy says, what are you talking about? Show me where I said instrumental. And Necheles says, say no more. Look at this. Here's your tweet. And it says, making me the best person to flush the orange turd down. And Stormy says, well, it doesn't say Trump. It just says orange turd. If you want to interpret it that way. And Necheles says, I offer this tweet And Stormy Daniels says, it's from a suspended account, so I don't know. The prosecutor says, I object, Your Honor. May we approach? And they have a whispered sidebar. At the defense table, again, Todd Blanche is whispering to Donald Trump. And Necheles continues, and she says, on Twitter, you celebrated and tried to sell merchandise in your online store, right? Do you have a store? Stormy says, yeah, sure. And you wrote, don't want to spill my champagne, merch orders pouring in, right? Yes. And look at this. This is you shilling your merch, right? Stormy says, I am doing my job. Kind of like Mr. Trump. Necheles says, and your merchandise is you bragging getting President Trump indicted, right? And Daniel says, I got President Trump indicted? What are you talking about? Necheles says, well, you're making $40 for every Stormy Saint of Indictments candle that you sell. And Stormy says, well, I only make about $7 per candle. And how about this? This is the Stormy Daniels political power comic. Stormy says, I didn't write it. And Necheles says, but you're selling it. Daniel says, yeah. And you're writing 2 books. What are they about? Stormy says, rock star and porn star about my husband and a novel about a girl from New Orleans. And does she have sex with a presidential candidate? No, says Stormy. Now Necheles says, all right, what about this? Where it says that you said that you lived in a haunted house in New Orleans where a ghost held your husband underwater. Stormy says, some say it was a possum under the house. And Necheles says, wait, Judge, I asked you to strike that. And Judge Bertrand overrules her objection. Necheles says, didn't you attack your boyfriend? Objection! Judge, we talked about this. This is from the prosecutor. And Merchan, he said, yes, let's move on. Necheles says, but didn't your boyfriend question your sanity? Objection! Sustained. And Necheles continues, you've been in over 200 sex films. Is that correct? Stormy says, including comps. Necheles says, well, what is that? Stormy says, compilations. So you have experience in making up fake stories about sex. Stormy says, well, the sex is real. That's why it's not a B movie. And Necheles says, well, now you have a story about having sex with Donald Trump, right? Stormy says, if I was making it up, it would be a lot better. Well, you make money working in the sex clubs. Stormy says, I work in strip clubs. It's a big difference. Well, do you remember Miss Hoffinger asking if you remembered the black and white tiled floor? Do you remember that? Stormy says, well, there's nothing wrong with preparing a witness. I would hope any lawyer would do that. Necheles says, but it was to match your book, right? This supposed sex took place 18 years ago, right? And only you and President Trump were supposedly there. Stormy says, and his bodyguard, he was right at the door. And you say you met him in Lake Tahoe? Stormy says, yes. And there were a lot of celebrities at the golf tournament, right? Aaron Rodgers was there, is that right? Stormy says, I don't know. How about Charles Barkley? Yes. And your picture with President Trump was one of dozens of photos you took, correct? Yes. Now, your testimony is that you told Keith Schiller F no when he asked for your number, but then you gave him your number, correct? Stormy says, that's right. But in 2011, you told In Touch magazine differently, didn't you? Look at Exhibit J23. You said President Trump asked for your number. You said you rode on a golf cart together and you gave your number to President Trump. And Stormy says, I gave it to his bodyguard. But you didn't mention his bodyguard in Touch magazine. Stormy says, they tried to get me not to mention others. But here in the story, you do mention Keith Schiller. In 2011, you told the interview, you said, to dinner, yes, of course. Stormy says, my publicist told me to do that. This is a frivolous entertainment magazine. Well, so you lied? You told Kimmel we never had dinner. He lied to me. I stayed for the food. You said that. Stormy says, I was invited to dinner and I never got dinner. I am very food motivated. Okay, look at this exhibit, J28, page 4. And Stormy says, well, where is this from? Oh, okay, I recognize it. And Necheles says, on Anderson Cooper in 2018, you said you had dinner with President Trump. Stormy says, I would like to be shown what I said. Necheles says, well, you remember the tiles on the floor, but you don't remember this? Objection! Sustained. Necheles continues, you said you had dinner, but you didn't. Stormy says, where I come from, having dinner doesn't necessarily putting food in your mouth. Necheles says, you said President Trump sent a car. Daniel says, I don't know who sent it. It was before Uber. And you told In Touch magazine that when you got to the hotel, President Trump was sprawled out on the couch watching TV, right? Stormy says, I don't remember saying that. Well, you said sprawled out in pajama pants. Stormy says, well, he got up. And in your book, you wrote that you had made him your bitch, right? Because you are powerful. Stormy says, I used to think so. And this is not the first time someone made a pass at you. Is that right, Stormy? Daniel says, there was a bodyguard out there. In 2011, you told InTouch that when you saw him on the bed, you said, oh, here we go, and then started kissing and had sex, right? Stormy says, there are parts I don't remember in between. Trump is leaning forward. He's watching this closely. Necheles continues. Now, in this InTouch interview, it doesn't have him saying, if you want to get what you want, get out of the trailer park. Stormy says, they left out a lot of stuff. Necheles says, how about this? You were interviewed for Slate magazine in 2018 by Jacob Weisberg. Stormy says, I don't know if that was his name. That's what it says. But you told Mr. Weisberg that there was no abuse. You were not a victim, right? Daniel says, yeah. And you never told Weisberg about blacking out. Stormy says, no. Mr. Trump did not drug me. The worst thing he did was lie. Oh, poor Stormy. Necheles says, in 2018, you said he didn't force you, but Tuesday, you said he stood over you. Daniel says, I said he stood in front of me. And in 2018, you told a reporter there was no pressure. Stormy says, my own insecurities made me do it. Necheles says, the American Century Championship had parties and auctions. Stormy says, there were a couple of auctions. And in your book, you said at the nightclub, you talked with President Trump for an hour. Stormy says, he left first after about 15 minutes. And how about this? In 2007, you took a selfie in the Trump Tower. Is that it? Bertrand says, all right, let's take our morning break. And that's what we have for the first part of the day, guys. Stormy Daniels being cross-examined by Susan Necheles. Now, we are going to continue this in a separate video when the rest of the transcript comes available. Matthew Russell Lee of Inner City Press, he does this live, so I'm getting this literally in real time. But what do you guys think of what's going on here? Do you guys notice that this stuff that the defense is trying to admit into evidence, the judge is just having none of it? He is denying almost everything from the defense. And once again, from the prosecution, he is sustaining all of their objections. But let me know what you guys think of all of this down below in the comments. Like and subscribe to my channel. I would really appreciate it. But until then, I will see you on the next one.